Hello, I'm Dr.
Yeah.
Deborah Sword. These short podcasts are based on the book I'm writing called Conflict Owner's Manual. I'm here with my co-host and friend, Tyson Bankert.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tyson. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a community facilitator and artist here in Calgary. Before we begin, I do want to say how great we look in these shirts, actually. So,
I do like our logo, the dandelion.
yes,
Conflicts
yes.
are like dandelions. And I have a short mini cast about the logo if anyone
Hmm.
wanted to listen to that. But today I want to talk about conflict when the goals are the same. We sometimes define conflict as a disagreement over goals, but you can have exactly the same goal as someone and be in conflict. Even when you agree on everything, you can disagree on how to achieve your goal. And I've mediated between parties who agreed on what they want to do and why and vigorously disagree on a plan. It can be as simple as agreeing on a movie, but disagreeing on which one to see, or as complicated as agreeing on a serious problem
Hmm.
to be fixed before disaster happens. But then the disagreement is around who's to blame, how to fix it, how to find a fixer, and who pays the bill.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense to me in my experience. I think most of us interpret conflict through everything that we experience. I think we choose what matters in a conflict, what issues and problems that they're based on our own interpretation and experience. That goes for how we think we should also solve the problem. So if someone else's interpretation and assumptions are different than ours, um, accepting that plan feels like giving up on our beliefs or principles, that gut instinct that we have about what I think that conflict means to us and how we are interpreting that conflict. And really, I think a lot of that is beholden to our past experiences. Letting go of those conflicts or those values is like saying to another person that they've won that conflict. And it's interesting that we think conflict is a competition. I often that it ends up being reduced to that. And why does conflict have to be a dominant experience of you versus me and not an experience where conflict, I think, allows for opportunity for cooperation.
Well, that's right. But so often, what we believe is correct, and in our conflict story, that makes the other person wrong. And when somebody else is wrong, we want to correct them so that they're thinking right according to us. But
Mm,
accepting their plan doesn't have to be about giving in on beliefs or compromising principles or feeling like you've lost. Instead, if we think of those beliefs and assumptions as a mental model of how things should
mm,
work when your world is behaving the way you think it should, that mental model is your worldview. And we can accept that people have worldviews that are different than ours. Once you and the other person can have that shared understanding that you have a mental model that is your worldview, as do I, then we can discuss what our worldviews are and we'll understand a little better what the source of the conflict is. And that helps us come up with a plan to achieve a shared goal. And very often, the plan is then stronger. It's a better plan because we've talked through, and as you mentioned, Tyson, our different values, our different beliefs, our different experiences. We talk through what brings us to hold that worldview, to have that mental model. We can come up with a better plan.
mm. Yeah, I mean, so much of our beliefs, values, and assumptions um, hold how we make decisions and also inform what we think is correct about the kind of behavior that we choose to do. And so when people are in disagreement with that, it can be really contentious. And so I think the idea of reframing it as a mental model and worldview is allows for it not to be either right or wrong, but it's just more about what you want to understand and how you show up in the world. And so if I don't know someone else's kind of mental model and worldview, then I'm going to consistently be in conflict with people that have different types of worldviews. And although it can be kind of invisible to other people, it's about being able to communicate what those mental models are. So that power of reflection, I think, is really important.
That's so true. And you've hit on a really important point, which is we assume that we understand what makes the other person wrong, in our opinion. But in fact, intention,
Mm,
worldviews, and mental models, assumptions, beliefs, and values, those are invisible. And what we're doing when we make our mental model and our worldview known is we're making it visible not only to the other person, but when was the last time we looked at it ourselves? So, as you say, that self reflection, we come away understanding ourselves better at the same time we're making the effort to understand the other person. We have to explain ourselves to the other person. We get a better handle on who we are, and as you say, how we want to be in the world. Everyone has a conflict mental map as well, where they think they know the correct path that their conflict should take. So we're asking that uh, people look at their assumptions and how they think a conflict should play out, because that's an important feature on their mental map.
mm. Yeah, I mean, I have found myself in conflict with people when the desired outcome of coming together is in competition with someone else's viewpoint or worldview of how things should go. I recall oftentimes being in a group where I'm someone who is very much a doer and wants to be really creative, while others have maybe an issue around being more cautious, and kind of low tolerance and low stakes. And it can really add complicating factors when we have two very competing interests. Um, and I think a definite answer, I think, is really about kind of being able to understand each other's worldviews, how they're showing up, and being able to have done that reflection, I think becomes really important, to then able to communicate your needs.
That's an important point about conflict in groups as well, is that we may think that our interests are in conflict, and it may be something as simple, although it's not a simple resolution, but a simple analysis might be that you want to do something creative, but somebody else sees it as too risky, that they don't want to put the group at risk of being critiqued or criticized. So it may just be different risk tolerances that you have to talk through. And that leads to another way out of the conflict, which is that either or thinking, where it either has to be this or that. Uh,
Mm,
People get stuck in that. They think that there will be, if we gather enough facts, we'll come to the right answer. But there may be no facts that will tell you whose values are correct. So you have to work through the mental maps and the worldview, because all of that contributes to both the conflict and the resolution. And the path towards the best plan is in that conversation to explore the different worldviews, the different mental maps, and the different belief systems.
mm. It makes me want also think about reflect on just this idea of the either or thinking. Oftentimes we think conflict can be either I win or I lose. And that if that's the stakes that we're playing with, then it becomes really difficult. And one of the ways I think we can resolve that is by being aware of other people's worldview and their mental maps, rather than each kind of arguing for this preferred plan or to win. They could have a conversation about the options, exchange interests, share their concerns, and 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 projections. Keep an open mind about what others have to say. They need to trust that there's different ways that might be able to find success, and that collective wisdom can create a better plan to move forward. So we'll be back every week. So please join us again and tell your friends that we're discussing how to do conflict better, because you never know when you might be called upon to be conflict confident.
Right. We all need to own our conflicts, and the Conflict Owner's Manual will show you how. So thanks for listening, and we hope you'll subscribe to our podcast.